Hello, everyone. It's Warren Hayes once again with another AEW Dynamite review. It's Thursday. It is March 16, one day removed from St. Patrick's Day when we're recording this. And if you're already in the St. Patrick's Day festivities, good on you. Congratulations. I hope you enjoy it. Hope you enjoy whatever Irish is in you. Whether you have true Irish or you're about to discover that you have Irish in you, whatever happens. I hope things are going well, and we're going to talk about AEW Dynamite, the March 15 edition that we just saw, that we watched last night, as I'm recording this, of course. Look. Let's just get the rigmarole out of the way. Like, subscribe to the Mr. Warren Hayes Show channel on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes. That's a good way to show just a tiny bit of support. Nice little way to, help the channel grow. Also shows me that you're enjoying what's going on, so on and so forth. So that's very good. And if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast app, well, listen, I appreciate you listening to the audio feed, and that's amazing. A 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, a 5-star rating on Spotify, so on and so forth. All these little things coming together help out a great deal. So thank you in advance. So you've already been thanked. So what are you waiting for? Just go ahead and do it. So we got a Dynamite, but before we get into it, as many of you know, I like to talk about the meta sometimes that's going around, things that aren't necessarily involved with Dynamite, but are adjacent to Dynamite and AEW and stuff. Well, this week it was announced last night, 2 big announcements regarding Canada and AEW. First and foremost, AEW is going to be presenting Forbidden Door 2 from Toronto, Ontario, at the Scotiabank Center, which is dope as hell. And you can guarantee your bottom dollar that your boy Warren Hayes is going to do everything in his power to get a ticket to go see that show. I'm excited. Are you kidding me? Like, as good as the first one. Like, I just want to see some New Japan guys. I want to see my AEW superstars going at it as well. So I'm excited for that. But then on top of that, they announced after that, they'd be on tour in Canada for 5 shows on top of the Forbidden Door show, which would make a grand total of 6 if your math is working out here. June 28th from the First Ontario Centre in Hamilton. July 5th from Rogers Place in Edmonton, Alberta. Shout out, Alberta. Wednesday on July 12th, right, from the SaskTel Centre in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. Then we're going to be getting a live Rampage in Regina. And then Saturday, July 15th, a house show. And this is interesting. AEW House Rules, a house show on the Saturday as a part of the Calgary Stampede. Now, maybe if you are not from Canada, you've never heard of the Calgary Stampede. If you're from Canada, you've absolutely heard of the Calgary Stampede. It's one of the most well-known and iconic yearly events that occurs in the country. It's a big rodeo, essentially, and it's going to be taking place, the House Rules show, at the Saddle Dome. And this is what I find interesting, is that the Saddle Dome is a huge venue. Well, I mean, look, it is a 20,000, a near 20,000 seater, right? It's a hockey arena. So is this going to be integrated with other events and so on? Because this is a big ask of themselves, wanting to pull out, just a, I don't want to say a plain old house show, but it is, it is what it is. It is a run-of-the-mill house show, no TV, nothing, in a 19,000 plus seat arena, which will probably be, it won't be a 19,000 available seats for the AEW show, since they'll have the entrance, the ramp, so on and so forth. So there'll be a couple of thousand seats down, but you know what I mean. You know what I'm talking about, right? Like this is it's a big venue for a house show. So that's really interesting. I don't know if they cut a deal because it's part of the Calgary Stampede. I don't know. But that's all very interesting to me. All very interesting. So, a bunch of shows happening in Canada. I think it's great. I think it's a good idea for AEW to stretch its wings. I think I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, where I was talking about how it was a good idea for for AEW to try and reach into Canada a little more, since maybe some of the markets that AEW is used to running maybe are experiencing a little fatigue. We have seen ticket sales being a little down in regards to live events, TV tapings, so on and so forth. So maybe this is part of a strategy to just stretch your arms, stretch your legs, stretch your arms at the same time, stretch all of your limbs into other markets that may have an appetite for live pro wrestling. So it makes sense. It makes sense to me. Forbidden Door in Toronto, look, I think that's a bold move, Cotton. And if you don't think this show is going to sell out in a blink, you're out of your mind. Just based off of the strength of the show last year. They don't have to announce anything. It's even more telling than last year, where you had everyone going, "Oh, only nerds are going to buy it." But the show sold out on the promise of nothing. They didn't even announce a single match, and the show sold out. And it was, in the minds of many people, the pay-per-view of the year last year. It was a hell of a show. Great show. So off of the strength of just the name alone, this show's going to sell out in a blink. And if you think that people from the United States are not going to cross the border, fly in to see this show, again, you are terribly wrong. You are immensely wrong. I was speaking with people in DMs today from the US saying that they haven't even got the tickets yet and their flights are already booked. So I don't know what to tell you. This is going to be for real. So this is great, but I will throw this out here. I find it a little strange. Well, look, at the same time, I understand that you want Canada's a big place, right? So, we're going from Toronto to Hamilton. Hamilton's like right next door. That's fine. It's in the same vicinity. And then we're heading out to Alberta, then Saskatchewan, then back to Alberta for the house show. So, you're sort of staying in the prairies environment. There's some traveling to be done, but you're just skipping over. You're not heading all the way back east. So, I understand like the logistics part of it, but I got to tell you, I find it a little strange that nothing has been set for Montreal yet. Another great wrestling city, right? That has a deep rooted history in pro wrestling, right? Yeah, I'm sure you all heard Ariel Helwani talk about it. But joking aside, it does have a very deep, rich history, and people love pro wrestling here. And I find it strange that they didn't book anything for Montreal. Now, if only off of what happened at Elimination Chamber, I would say this would be the perfect time to strike while it's hot. I keep saying, since the Elimination Chamber, and there's many other instances of this that you can point at. I think it's fair to say that WWE doesn't like Montreal, doesn't like giving Montreal anything nice. I think this would have been a good opportunity for AEW to swoop in and say, hey, you know what? Come over here. Let's have a party. Let's have something that you guys will enjoy. And AEW likes to play off local audiences. We're going to talk about this a little later on in the review, but we know this is part of AEW's booking tropes to a degree at this point. I think they could have done something that would have garnered them a lot of good faith. You don't have to fill out the Bell Center. I was going to call it the Molson Center. That's how old I am. You don't have to fill out the Bell Center necessarily. That's not objectively the point. But still, I think it's a bit of a missed opportunity. Then again, I'm also cognizant of the fact that you just don't go around, booking, you don't necessarily book venues last minute. And it was like, oh, something happened, let's get on the horn. Sometimes it can happen, but it's a bit more of a process. Sometimes you have to book things in advance, I understand the game. It's not as easy as I make it sound, but I can't help but think that this would have been a golden opportunity for AEW to jump in and maybe capitalize off of the bitter taste that was left in the mouths of Montrealers. So anyway, interesting. I think it's good. I think it's fun. Look, more wrestling in Canada is a good thing. And AEW clearly, trying to establish itself in markets outside the U.S. Of course, they're going to be, they announced that they were going to the UK this year. We still don't know when or where. When I mean where, I mean like the venue specifically. I think they're going to London, if I'm not mistaken. So look, interesting stuff moving on. But we are going to get into this review of AEW Dynamite that occurred on March 15 from Winnipeg, Manitoba, the Life Center. I bet that everyone was like, what a great Winnipeg crowd, so on and so forth. Well, of course. Finally something happens in Winnipeg that's not hockey. I love, I'm fully aware that in the minds of a lot of wrestling fans right now, Winnipeg comes across as this, this breeding ground for greatness and all sorts of great stuff because of Jericho and Kenny Omega and a lot of noise being made around Winnipeg. But I triple dog dare anyone to go spend a week in Winnipeg. Go on vacation and say, I'm going to Winnipeg for a week. And I dare them to book themselves, a full 7 days of the Winnipeg experience and come back saying this was, I get it now. Winnipeg is this great center, this great, metropolitan center and full of culture, diversity, knowledge, activities, excitement. No disrespect to anyone who lives in Winnipeg. But I like how Winnipeg feels so big in the minds of pro wrestling fans because of who came out of there. But in reality, it's like, you spend 48 hours there and you're okay, what else is there to do here? Kind of thing. I'm sure it's a lovely place to live. Very cold. But then again, what isn't in Canada? So that's not even a thing. So the show started off with the re-bar mitzvah of MJF, his birthday and his re-bar mitzvah. Comes down to the ring with four ladies on his arm. Kisses one before he gets inside the ring. Grabs a mic, mocks the crowd for thinking that Bret Hart was entertaining. Says Shawn Michaels was better. That's just a fantastic way to get, to have the Canadian crowd turn against him. And he says, we're here to celebrate the most important day in recorded history, his birthday. Not only his birthday, he says Judaism being the only religion that matters also means that it is his re-bar mitzvah today because he, when a boy turns 13, They get their bar mitzvah, where he lost his V card. He says, I look, who cares if this is true or not, right? Because then it's like, oh my God, it's so gross. Like, who cares? It doesn't even matter if it's true or not. He says Brian, he wanted to defeat Brian Danielson to come out of that match being the undisputed best professional wrestler in the world. He's no longer merely a man. He's an Iron Man. Then he has a bunch of gentlemen come out, hit the ring to do the chair dance. I'm sorry, like I'm not going to pretend that I'm fully aware of bar mitzvah customs outside of, like, I know that this is what they do, have the kids sit on the chair and then dance around with them. It probably has a name and I'm not aware of it, but they do that tradition. But this is all interrupted when Jungle Boy's music hits. Jungle Boy Jack Perry. He comes out. All of the pillars come out, actually. All 3 of the 4 AEW pillars that weren't already in the ring come out once after the other. So we're talking, of course, of Jack Perry, Sammy Guevara, and Darby Allin. And they all demand title shots from MJF. And then they all take turns. Jack Perry tells him to shut up. Actually, they all tell Max to shut up, right? So the last time they fought one-on-one was at Double or Nothing 2020, and they went back and forth for almost 20 minutes until Max cheated to win, of course, which, by the way, was one of my matches of the year in 2020. I should go back and watch it because I am convinced it still holds up. It was a fantastic match, which was criminally underappreciated in 2020. Then Sammy's turn tells him to shut up before he recircumcises him. He says he worked the indies for a decade, grinding while working in fast food joints. When he was brought in, he was told he was just going to be the Inner Circle's job boy. But now he's a champion 3 times over, and he doesn't get all the opportunities that Max has. Then it's Darby Allin's turn, where he tells him to shut up. He talks about how he turned in a movie when he was in film school in 2013. And his teacher told him that he had to change everything about it. So instead of changing anything, he dropped out. Now, that's a reasonable reaction, isn't it? I'm joking. But you know what? Now I want to see this film. I want to see this film, this 2013 student project from Darby Allin that he believed in so much that where he preferred to drop out of school than compromise his artistic vision. I want to see this film now. He says his biggest problem with the company is grown-ass wrestlers whining on Twitter about being unhappy with their deals, including MJF and this bidding of War of 2024 bullshit. Probably ruffled some feathers backstage. Probably got some people a little, steaming out the nose a little bit, going, look at this kid. What is he talking about? He's not wrong. I mentioned it. What was it, last week? Then on last week's review where I talked, I'm sort of getting, it was after the Ricky Starks promo, right? Where Ricky Starks was also saying, it's like, it's not what do I do next, but where I go next. And I'm like, man, why does everyone want to leave this company? We got to put a kibosh on this. It's not fun anymore. It's not fun if everyone's doing it. You know what I mean? And then there was, there was the work that FTR was putting on everyone on Twitter. Like I'm ready to fully support wrestlers who just want to stay in AEW at this point. But most of them are silent. That's the thing. Anyway, he says if he doesn't get Darby Allin, if he doesn't get a title shot, he's going to beat his face in with a skateboard and give him a headlock takeover, which is a nice little throwback to some AEW long-term storytelling here. I like that. Maxwell Jacob Friedman, of course, is pissed and takes off his sunglasses to reveal how beat up his face is. And Jesus, he took a pummeling. That Iron Man match was no joke. He responds to each of them and basically says, each of them had mentors, right? Christian Cage, Chris Jericho, and Sting, but he's never been in daddy daycare, and he's not afraid to admit that they're the pillars and they're the future, but he, being MJF, is the only one that can keep this place up. This all breaks down, of course. MJF gets thrown, this cake, so MJF gets thrown into a cake. I have mixed feelings about this. One of the things that annoys me the most, like one of the most tropiest tropes in pro wrestling, specifically from WWE, is everyone takes a turn cutting a promo on the main guy, right? I thought this was handled creatively, and so on one hand it unnerves me. On another hand, I thought, look, it all came off as what's the word I'm looking for? A roast. It all came off because they were all taking all of the three other pillars were taking shots at MJF. MJF took shots back at them. I'm not going to go down the whole thing. I'm sure you've seen it by now, but MJF was also very insulting towards Sammy Guevara and his monogamy. So there's a bunch of stuff here that I myself I'm kind of, I thought the way it was handled sort of broke the regular way that this stuff is handled in the other company. So that was good. He fell into the food. Well, it's like, I look, and I'm going to talk about this a little later on as well, but we're going to leave it at that as far as the cake goes and these tropes where I'm like, okay, well, we all saw this coming. And is it entertaining? Is it fun? Is it creative, or is it lazy? I don't think it's all that creative. But there was good in this. It was a long opening promo, which, AEW does not have a tendency to do. So when they do pull it out, it feels fresh. It feels unusual. And it gets a pass from me, as opposed to, WWE's programming, which always starts with 10 to 15 minute promo segments to kick off the show. Whereas, I can understand why they wanted to start with this, but then, the rebar mitzvah, like this was a championship celebration in disguise, folks. Let's not mince anything here. This was a championship celebration in disguise where you had a table with some food, you had some balloons. There was nothing really special. They did the chair thing, like I get it, but like AEW's done this a couple of times as well, championship celebrations, and they're just like the other companies' championship celebrations. They don't feel unique. It's cookie cutter. It felt a little cookie cutter. But like I said, the way it was handled by each of the guys, and the content of each of the pillars' promos didn't make it feel like it was a rigmarole. Like it's like, I've seen this before. Does that make sense? But again, like, I'm not sitting here slapping my knees telling you this fired on all cylinders. This was good. But again, I want to reserve a little more for a little later on in the breakdown. We get footage of Chris Jericho. He getting a prize, an award, from the government of Manitoba, which is the province of Winnipeg. He's being awarded he got awarded a Queen Elizabeth II Jubilee Medal. And I'm like, is this a thing? Like, I didn't know this was a thing. Do all the provinces have this, or is it just Manitoba? I don't know. gonna admit I did not research this. And I'm thinking, shouldn't it be called the King Charles Jubilee Medal now? This is my Canadian brain. Honestly, I couldn't care less. I could, they could call it the William Shatner Jubilee Medal, for all it's worth. And honestly, I'd probably be more excited if they called it the William Shatner Jubilee Medal. And he gets the name he grew up on named after him, but I think it's an honorary thing, like they did with Stone Cold Drive back in the day. Remember that? It's not named that anymore as far as I understand. So, it's an honorary renaming of a street. But good for him. Good for Jericho. Anyway, this all leads us into the Blackpool Combat Club versus Adam Page and Super Smash Bros. This was match of the night, in my opinion. I thought Stu looked fantastic here. I really did. And he did some fantastic stuff and should make people regret, not renewing his contract, not keeping him around. Stu is fantastic. And I've had the opportunity to see him live on the Indies at the C4 show. Shout out C4 Wrestling in Ottawa. And he's ridiculously good. And if you go back to some of my podcasts, back when AEW was starting up, and we were talking about the Dark Order and AEW and so on, and I was telling you, do not sleep on Stu Grayson because this guy has championship material written all over him. This is, I can only equate Stu Grayson not getting his shit renewed in AEW as a fumble. For all the guys and gals that they have on the roster, dropping Stu, I think that's ridiculous. And SSB here got to stretch its legs a little bit, and they hit, the Wombo combo and the fatality, two of their mainstays as a team. But it can't put Mox away. Mox wins with the Bulldog choke on Stu, which is fine. I mean, Stu should have been the fall guy here. That's fine. After the match, though, Mox keeps holding on to the choke. Uno tries to break it up. He can't. The Beaver Boys run in for the save. Look, at this point, you cannot wonder if the Blackpool Combat Club, yeah, we're talking about that in a second. The Blackpool Combat Club are heels or tweeners leaning heel. They're full on heels at this point. Good luck getting them to AEW. Good luck to them trying to. Good luck on them trying to get me to hate Jon Moxley. Best of luck to you, pals. But I'm here for it. I think we're starting to see where we're heading with this. But again, we'll talk about it in a little bit. I don't know. I thought this match was very good. I thought this match was very, very good. And Stu put on a hell of a show. Good stuff. You get Juice Robinson cutting a promo about why he went after Ricky. Let's connect this into Ricky's promo, which he cut a little later on. Juice Robinson had a pre-tape. Ricky Starks was backstage. He says it's nice that Juice is part of Bullet Club, which was relevant back in 2015. He's not wrong. And he wonders if Juice bringing in Bullet Club into this is going to help him. Now, what was I talking to you all about last week? I'm not ready to take a victory lap just yet. I'm not ready, but, not necessarily patting myself on the back. But I'm going to start maybe rubbing my shoulder. How about that? How about, what if I'm just caressing my upper shoulder blades to begin with? How about that? What was I saying last week? Juice Robinson comes in to Bullet Club music, right? Not to Juice's Bullet Club theme, but coming into the Bullet Club theme, the generic one for everyone, And then you have the Bullet Club logo appearing. Not Juice's logo, none of that. And now Ricky here dropping a hint that we might be getting into a war, into another fight with a faction here, where Ricky might be taking on another group of guys. Interesting that I mentioned this last week, and this is alluded to on AEW Dynamite this week. I still think, I'm seeing a lot of people getting really mad that Ricky is, quote unquote, demoted into feuding with Juice Robinson, but keep your nose to the ground here instead of reacting. Think about things about reacting. There have been signs here already that this is not a feud with Juice Robinson, that Ricky Starks is probably angling to start a fight with Bullet Club, and that maybe, just maybe, it might be with one Adam Cole, baby, maybe one Jay White, if this ever comes to fruition, right? We don't know. I'm still speculating, but I think this is clearly going to lead into a bigger feud. And I don't see how you could take a feud with Ricky Starks and Ricky Starks feuding with a guy like Adam Cole as a demotion. And this is all tying into stuff that I've observed and that I've talked about here. Again, not ready to take a victory lap until it happens. But there's no way Adam Cole is staying a babyface. As much as y'all love him and you're like, this is great, he is not staying a babyface because that's the weasel that he is. He's going to get all this goodwill and he's going to shit on it at some point. And he said in his promo, one of his promos as he backstage with Renee, he said, I know I have to come prepared. What does that mean if you're Adam Cole? That means you get guys on your side. He's not coming in empty-handed. He's not going to run in here willy-nilly doing jack shit. I'm telling you. And if there's anything that I've learned to understand and this is not the case in all stories in AEW, but when certain angles start dropping little tiny hints like this that you can pick up on if you pay attention and you watch the show and you understand Tony Khan's booking patterns in his mind, you can see that this is not the deal. Juice Robinson is not the end game for Ricky Starks, and if anyone thinks it is, you're not paying attention. This is a launching point. And if you think Tony Khan believes that this is the best that he has for Ricky Starks right now, you're deluded. Just out of your mind at this point. Maybe not out of your mind. But keep an eye on this. Ricky Starks versus Bullet Club and Adam Cole led Bullet Club. I'd put money on that. If I were a betting man, if this was on BetMGM, if this was on DraftKings, if this was on, I don't know, what are the other ones? Look, I would put money on that. Then we get the AEW TBS title match. The Canadian Open Challenge, which was answered by Nicole Matthews, well-known indie star, shimmer superstar, well-known, beloved, hard worker. She got trounced by Jade Cargill, though, who retained the title. Nicole got no offense, and this was a squash. It was good to see Nicole on TV. After the match, Jade Cargill is interviewed by Renee Paquette. She threatens Renee because, aren't you from Canada, Renee? Yes, but she's not a wrestler. Calm yourself there. Is Jade falling victim to roid rage? Being stupid. Don't repeat that. But then Taya Valkyrie's music hits. She has now arrived in AEW. She was the surprise appearance out of nowhere. And she is a member of All Elite Wrestling. She has joined the company. She got the graphic. She's on the roster. And she has angled herself into being Jade's next big time challenger. Good for Taya. Good for Taya. Get yourself a payday. She's got the experience. We'll see how she meshes with the rest of the roster, but clearly, she's going to be in the TBS title environment, which was in deep need of new blood, of something to happen, right? Now, this is not what I would have done. This is not at all what I would have done. No disrespect to Nicole, but I would have had Jade come in. This is what your boy Warren Hayes would have done. Jade comes in, grabs the mic. Who's my challenger? Taya's music hits. She's in gear. She's ready to go. Hits the ring. They fight. And Taya beats Jade right there. Right in the middle of the ring in Canada. Takes the title. Big event. Huge pop. Crowd goes nuts. Makes it feel big time. Makes Taya feel big time. And you're probably saying, well, Lauren, there wouldn't been no build for this. Look, we don't need any more build to this TBS title situation. The TBS title situation needs a shot in the arm. And this is nothing against Jade, who I think has done the best possible job that she could have done in the same circumstances with anyone else in the same circumstances. Someone who just essentially is having their rookie years in front of our eyes on national TV and being booked the way she was booked. I don't think anyone could have done any better. This was, the TBS title doesn't have any steam. Jade Cargill no longer has steam. This undefeated streak that she has, I don't know, it's not the talk of the town. It's not no one is I don't think, I don't see, think pieces on a weekly basis on who should beat her, who should end the streak. I don't see it because I don't think it interests folks in general, because everyone sort of sees that the undefeated streak has been against mostly jabrones. The people who didn't constitute, jabrones is a little harsh, but people who didn't constitute a threat. Outside of Athena, I think, being the only one where everyone was like, maybe, but no. No one ever really saw any of Jade's competition as a legitimate threat to her title. So now she's been booked in a quarter because she went through the entire TBS title universe. She should be on the same level. She should be fighting women like Toni Storm and Britt Baker and so on and so forth. But she's in the orbit of the TBS title. So it's a whole other thing in the women's division. She went through everyone. Who's left? Got to bring someone in. And I would have done that right then and there. Have Jade deal with the fact that she lost, that she was not prepared. Let her do all of the heel tropes afterwards. I wasn't prepared. Tony Khan, you son of a bitch. I didn't have time to prepare for this match. What do you mean, you won't announce my opponents? All of that stuff. Have her do that. Let's inject some life into Jade. That's what, there would have been so many positives coming out of this. Why are we still holding hope that Chris Statlander is going to come in? Chris Statlander, as much as it sucks because she probably was the one on the way to dethrone her. She probably was the one, but she got injured. What are you going to do? How long are we going to hold out for Chris Statlander to return? Let's just pull the trigger on this. Let's end it out of a surprise out of nowhere. And then it adds to the unpredictability of the show as well. If you don't watch Dynamite, you're missing out on big events like Jade losing the title, her streak being beaten. Give it to Taya. Who cares at this point? Like, it doesn't matter at this point. Jade is diminishing returns. Has been diminishing returns at this point. And again, I don't blame necessarily her. Again, with the level of skill that she has, she's been doing fine. Her booking has been so-so. I don't think it's been compelling. I don't think her 2 or 3 feuds with Red Velvet have been great. I don't think there hasn't been a standout moment for Jade in her entire reign as TBS champion. It's all been very mid. It's time to move on. I think this would have been the perfect place to do it. Get some buzz back around the title. Taya Valkyrie is walking around with it. Jade is pissed off. Have the rematch at Double or Nothing. Would have been fine. Now we're talking about QTV. We get the first installment of QTV, which is essentially TMZ, right? That's what they're aping here. This is the joke. This is the thing that they're doing, and they have, a cast of characters now. They have a lady. Who is she? They have a lady saying being dumb, I guess, is her gimmick. I don't know, her thing. We get revealed that QTV is behind breaking into Wardlow's car. Aaron Solo did it, and he has a little gimmick where he does mouth spray now. That could have legs. That could get annoying. I fucking hate that. I hope if QT Marshall hears this, that he doesn't come after me on Twitter. I just hope so. But as opposed to saying this sucked, I'm going to take another route. This wasn't for me. This isn't my thing. Okay. It's a little too comedy sketch for me. A little too outside of pro wrestling for me. Not saying it sucked, that it should, the plug should be pulled. But I am saying that it's not for me. And I get worried when I see things like this. And when I see opening segments like we got. And I'm wondering, sometimes I wonder if this isn't a response to online fans, and I use the, in quotations, the fans, who say, there's too much pro wrestling, we need more stories. We need more stories, more character development. We need more, more stories. And if this isn't the response to that stuff, because we know Tony's online and Tony reads this shit and he picks up on this stuff. It's like, is this a response? Because when I see opening promos with everyone takes a turn cutting a promo, and when I see stuff like this, which, fits perfectly on an episode of NXT, right? I can't help but wonder if this isn't a response, and if some punditry out there who have never seen anything outside of WWE, have never seen any pro wrestling outside of the 2 decades that WWE dominated and said this is the only way to do it, I can't help but wonder if they're not winning in this situation. And slowly, AEW becomes closer and closer to a WWE version, to a version of WWE, which, I'm just throwing out an observation, and I'm not saying, oh, this is absolutely the case, this is what's happening. But I am seeing little things like this that seem to happen a little more often, and I have a tendency to point them out here on the reviews. And it's getting a little concerning. Because don't tell me that the QTV gimmick, the skit that they did, don't tell me that didn't have a place that it didn't have a perfect place on WWE television. Like, that absolutely feels like it belongs there. And I feel it doesn't belong in AEW. And this is the thing, is like, AEW should not be like WWE. And I know that, again, there's a lot of very influential influencers out there who brandish the WWE flag quite a bit, who turn to AEW and is like, oh, this sucks, I don't understand, so on and so forth. And because clearly it's not for them. Clearly it's not what they're used to, and they can't appreciate the fact that we have an alternative to WWE. And I'm wondering if these voices aren't getting louder and aren't influencing decisions being made in regards to the programming on a weekly basis on Dynamite. Let's not forget, TNA wanted to be WWE light. That's exactly what they wanted to do. But they couldn't pull it off they wanted to be WWE, but they couldn't pull it off for multiple reasons, which, don't have to get into today. So it did feel like a cheap knockoff of WWE. Because WWE's formula works, and they're the best at doing their formula. So let them have it. Let them go. The worst thing AEW could do right now is try to be more like the competitor, as opposed to not being like the competitor and providing something for fans like myself who are starved for pro wrestling, and get into that instead. Because I find it refreshing, the way things are booked differently, how storylines are developed differently. And a lot of WWE fans have trouble with that, because they've only been presented wrestling in one way for 20 years, and that's all they know. And again, this isn't necessarily a knock on those folks. I'm not gonna sit here and tell them you should go watch. They should, but it's not my place to say. It's not my place to tell them to tell anyone what they should do with their fandom. What I'm worried about is more WWE isms making their way to AEW programming, and then that becoming more of a thing. Again, the QTV thing, I get the joke. I thought it was silly in a good way, but it's not for me. And I don't want necessarily Powerhouse Hobbs to be lost in a sea of wacky comedy bits, because I think that will ultimately dampen his run more than anything else. Because I think a lot of folks have some high hopes for this Powerhouse Hobbs run. He's going to get a match against Rey Fenix this week on Rampage, which is fantastic. I cannot wait to see how this works out. I thought that he was going to have, shit heel manager QT Marshall just being a jerk to him. Not being a jerk, but being a jerk to his opponents and just being an asshole mouthpiece, which I honestly think the QT Marshall Powerhouse Hobbs pairing to be spectacular. But in this context, I think we're trying too hard, which is usually a criticism that I have for WWE things. We're trying too hard. Look, I'm not ready to shut it down. I'm not ready to crap all over it. I'm gonna give it some room to breathe, but I'm not excited. Then we had the very first AEW International title match, where the level up, we leveled it up. We leveled up the All Atlantic title. We leveled it up thanks to Shazam, Fury of the Gods. I was asked, does the logo, because you know, I had all this thing, this stuff about the Mountain Dew blue black match, pitch black match. I had this whole to-do about it, right? Because the match stunk. How do you feel about the logos? The Shazam logos on the Titantron. The logos don't bother me. Look, I watch Japanese pro wrestling. There's logos everywhere on the mats, on the turnbuckles. Like that sponsorships are not a problem. You know, it's as of right now, themed, sponsored matches as created by World Wrestling Entertainment have not been good. And there's so much emphasis on this, like, what they're doing, right? But what was the other the zombie match, which was for that one movie, that Dave Bautista movie, right? Wasn't that it? Wasn't Dave Bautista in there? I don't even remember what the movie was. Then that stunk, and then the pitch black match that stunk. So it's not because they go too hard in a gimmick that ultimately just compromises why I watch pro wrestling. If you're just coming out with a logo. And the logo's in the far corner, right? It's not like the whole Titantron. It's not like when fucking Austin Theory came out and he had a Beyblade. The whole Titantron was the Beyblade logo. And I'm like, come on, man. Like this, now we're going a little too far. With logos popping up and, partnerships with movies. WWE's done it in the past multiple times. It's like this match is sponsored by, whatever fuck movie. What was the Rampage movie, right? The one that wasn't Dwayne Johnson's monster kaiju movie that stunk. That was bad. Everyone's on Black Adam, but the Rampage movie, that was a bad film. I don't have a problem with that. Anyway, Orange Cassidy defeated Jeff Jarrett in this. Look, this was not a work rate match, and I was excited for this match for multiple reasons. I was ready for Jeff Jarrett International Champion. I was ready for it, not gonna lie. But this was not a work rate match, and that wasn't the point of the match regardless. This was a Jeff Jarrett old school heel match that complemented Orange Cassidy's big babyface energy perfectly. And on top of that, the anxiety that most of wrestling fans were living in the pit of their stomach of having Jeff Jarrett win. This is a hill that I'm getting more and more prepared to die on. I love Jeff Jarrett in AEW. I think he's fantastic. As far as bringing in a retro act, this is a guy who still has in-ring skills. He looks good, and he still knows how to work a crowd. And he still knows how to make things work. Like, he is solid as hell in the role that he was. Should he be promoted to the World Championship? No, of course not. He's a mid-card act, and it's fine. So the anxiety that people were living around the idea of Jeff Jarrett winning a title in AEW, people who already wanted it off the screen, plus, his antics that I knew he was going to do, I was excited for this match. How did this match end up playing? I think it was overbooked. I think there was too much to this. I think we could have done without. You know what put it over? The one thing that that made it too much for me, that was like, no, all right, was Jay Lethal getting involved. That was the moment where I was like, this is too much, because we got Satnam interfering a couple of times. We had the El Kabong attempt that was thwarted by Aubrey. This, because like I said, this is like old school shit heel Jeff Jarrett doing everything he can to cheat. Can't pull it off because everyone's on top of it. And this ties in, Aubrey coming down once there's the ref bump, right? Aubrey coming down because Aubrey's like, you motherfucker, Jeff Jarrett, you put your hands on me. And, it's like, that's fine. Like, it all connects, but we didn't need this much. And we didn't need to go all the way with, a near fall caused by Jay Lethal running in out of nowhere. I think it didn't add anything to the match. I think it added it didn't add anything good. It just added some more weight to something where you're like, oh man, come on. It already felt exhausting. We could have got some nice near falls with Orange Cassidy because his babyface energy doesn't need all of this nonsense. It really doesn't. Orange Punch puts Jeff Jarrett away. I don't know what you do moving forward with Jeff Jarrett, though. As far as a mid-card act, he's fine. But at this point, it's like, it's like I often say, wins and losses do matter at some point. So if all he does is lose, and losing big matches on top of that, loses, in the tag team match at Revolution, loses this title attempt. What's the point moving forward? I don't know. But look, positive out of this, Orange Cassidy continues his reign, continues to be the goddamn workhorse of this fucking company. I talked about it last week. I don't need to rehash it, but Orange Cassidy is the workhorse of AEW. It's ridiculous. Not a fantastic match. It's not, like I said, this isn't a work rate match. This is an old school shit heel design match, which could have worked better. I'm 50-50 on it. I enjoyed it to a degree. Back from commercial, we get a music video for The Acclaimed, which I thought was fun, right? Hanging out with, taking clips of them with fans. I thought that was fun. And then a little later on, we get 2.0, who cut a promo on the video. They're all still embroiled in a thing. I don't have a problem with The Acclaimed in this position here, right? Because they've been, they've lost a couple of times, but people love them. And I think part of, I think The Acclaimed are going to be one of these acts where the chase is going to be more prevalent for them than actually winning. They're going to be like Dusty Rhodes, Dusty would win, he knew his money. Dusty knew that his money was in him chasing the NWA title as opposed to actually having it. That's why he'd want to drop it as soon as possible so that he could get back to chasing it. Because that's where the money was. And I think this is the case with The Acclaimed. Then we have The Outcasts, which is now the official name of the group made up of Saraya, Toni Storm, and Ruby Soho. They come in. They get on the mic. Ruby Soho talks about the grass being greener here until some bitches pissed all over the lawn or something. Saraya calls AEW fans neckbeard smelly twats. I don't know why I think that's the funniest. That's the funniest dig. Neckbeard smelly twats. Toni Storm calls them fat. We're good. You want to talk about the low-hanging fruit? You're not supposed to like them. I can't even say the thing without cracking up laughing. I don't know how she managed to do it. Neckbeard smelly twats. And this goes uncensored. Oh. Jamie Hayter and Britt Baker interrupt the segment and they go after everyone until they get overwhelmed. And then Riho the needle mover, whose demo on Rampage last week was the highest of the entire show. Needle mover Riho hits the ring, led by, and she's leading Willow Nightingale and Sky Blue in, and she's packing a pipe. She's got a pipe, which is like the entire length of her torso. Just a fantastic visual. I cannot get behind this any more than I already have. Riho she is magic. This is everything. She is everything that I enjoy about pro wrestling. Just the complete absurdity of it, of her tiny frame running in with a pipe as, half as long as she is. And I'm like, yes, clean them out. And I'm supporting it. I'm behind it. I'm like, fuck yeah. It's not even hard. I enjoy that. Riho is untapped magic for this company. Yet, I don't think Tony Khan fully appreciates just how magical Riho is for this company. And yes, she gets driven off Twitter because people are assholes. Because people, and you know where it all comes from, because the people who are assholes to her are all parroting the same shit. And you know where all this comes from. It's nonsense. It's fucking nonsense. And if you don't think Riho is a significant get for the AEW fan base, you can't analyze wrestling properly. You just can't. You're completely disconnected, or you're letting your own personal feelings come over you. But the AEW fans love Riho. She has been over with this company from the get-go. And she pops in, she comes back it feels like she disappears for 8 months, then comes back, and everyone is still super excited to see her. So she's being included into this war that they have brewing with, the AEW OGs versus the Outcasts, which I think is really funny that they're calling themselves Outcasts. I think it's a good name for them. They feel, we've been pushed aside. It's like y'all were working for the biggest wrestling company in the world. Now you come here and you feel slighted because no one's trotting out the red carpet. Oh, the segment was fine right until Rio ran in with a pipe. Christ, that ruled. This is where Rey Fenix gets a promo. Being the first title defense for Powerhouse Hobbs on Rampage this Friday. And that leads us to the World Trios title match between the House of Black. Well, the House of Black retained their titles successfully by defeating the Jericho Appreciation Society and the Elite. I thought this was look, okay. Again, chatting in DMs, you know who you are. Chatting with DMs, right? I think there's a case to be made that Aleister Black is not at the center of the House of Black stuff, right? He doesn't feel significant. He doesn't feel important. In fact, I've observed over these past two defenses that they've had, well, the win actually, and this one here, that Brody King has been doing a lot of the heavy lifting for House of Black. Like, he's been doing a lot. Buddy Murphy and Malachi, they've both been sort of, Buddy Matthews, excuse me. They've both been a little more, working background roles. Because you'll notice, if you go back and you watch the Revolution match, Brody's all over that shit. He was, the MVP for the House of Black. And even last night on last night's Dynamite, he's the guy coming out and giving in all the work. He's doing most of the work here. So having Malachi not be more of a presence there is kind of weird because it's his thing, it's his faction. I feel he should be using more of his commanding presence because we know he has it. I'm a big Aleister Black, Malachi Black guy. So, yeah, I don't want to put too much conspiracy into this because there's been enough put into Malachi's plate over the past, 9 to 10 months at this point. But sometimes I feel like, is this just something that they're having Black do until his contract runs out? Is this maybe something that it's just like, we're just going to have you do this? And he's like maybe phoning it in a little more. I don't know. Because of course, we're a far cry from the Malachi Black that came in and destroyed Cody Rhodes, right? We're a far cry from that dude. Of course, there's stuff that happened in the meantime, right? There's the time he wanted to take off. So I can also understand the Booker man being, look, let's talk about putting you into some top tier programs down the road. Right now, we're going to put you in here because you haven't proven yourself to be all that reliable. And I can understand that. Like if I'm a booker and I'm looking at this and he has to take some time off and he's created some heat for the company because, it was, some things were falsely communicated or were put out there and people thought that he was mad at AEW and he could, if I'm Tony Khan, I'm like, look, I've got guys who have been consistently great, who have been on our side. I'm going to push these guys first. And to me, that makes sense, right? So again, like there's a lot of stuff that we aren't necessarily privy to that's going on backstage that can factor into these decisions. So if Tony Khan is in a position where he's like, look, Malachi, I love you. You're great. Thank you for being here. You had to take some time off, but in the meantime, I had to build with other guys. And I have to reward these guys. Now, we can have you do this program, and then we'll see after. And maybe that's it. Maybe that's fair. Maybe Malachi is working with some type of injury that we don't know of. There could be so many things that we don't understand at this point. But that translates to us as fans where we look at this and we're like, why isn't Malachi being used more? Why isn't he being more present in these matches? I don't know. It is curious to say the least. Now, Omega and Jericho were the centerpiece of this match, right? Now, why? Why is this? Why were they at the centerpiece of this match? Well, because it was a hometown crowd. Because this is what people wanted. They wanted to see the Winnipegians, the Winnipegites. I think it's Winnipegians. They wanted to see their Winnipeg boys go at it. That's what it was for. And if you had any other level of expectation, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, because at this point, it is the most clear, most consistent booking trope from AEW, Tony Khan, giving live audiences what they want. Having hometown guys and gals win in their hometowns. Having them win championships in their hometowns. I don't know what to tell you. The opposite happens much less frequently. Like the boys from Winnipeg last night not winning the titles is a little askew as from what we usually get. So instead of that, they made sure, they being the people involved in this match, they made sure that Omega and Jericho fought each other and worked together. And I'm not surprised by this. I don't know what to tell you. I've said this multiple times, and I think this is the best comparison that I can give y'all, and I'll use it again here. WWE is a television show taped live in front of a studio audience. Or an audience anyway, but you get the idea. Whereas AEW is a live show that is also taped for TV. WWE doesn't care about your reactions. It doesn't care about what the crowd wants. It's all about their story and what they're telling, and who cares if the crowd goes home disappointed? Otherwise, they would have done something else at the Elimination Chamber. Anyway, I don't want to get into that, but that's still the point. Whereas AEW has consistently given live audiences great moments, have given them reason to go home happy and to buy a ticket next time. So, we can argue here and say, well, it's kind of weird that the House of Black wasn't at the center of this, but it's not. It really isn't. They wanted to give this match stakes. Otherwise, here's the thing. If the match had just been Jericho Appreciation Society versus the Elite, what would have been the criticism there? What's the point of this match? When is this match happening? Doesn't make sense. And they wanted to give the House of Black a title defense under their belt. I think this is a win all across the board from that perspective. Crowd was excited because the hometown boys got into it. What a great reaction Kenny Omega got. And he took the time to shake hands with the fans, and he was very appreciative. Chris Jericho did Chris Jericho things. That was fine. But this match in and about itself was fine. Not good, not great, fine. I feel like we had multiple little matches within this match. I don't think the match structure here was all that great. And listen, the finish to this match completely killed the crowd. Like, that was a Sami Zayn getting pinned level of getting the energy out of the crowd. That Dante's Inferno on Dan Garcia that crowd just went whomp. A hot crowd that was up on their feet for the entirety of this match. Now, you can book this any other way. Like, this is what I say. This is a good example of when I say, why should we always think that, we have to go down a WWE track here? A WWE track would have been, not providing enough focus, not giving enough of Kenny Omega and Chris Jericho in here. And I know Chris Jericho is controversial, and I know he's a crowd. People are split down the middle on him. But we have to reasonably. You look at the crowd reactions, how the crowd reacted to this match. You cannot say that this was not booked perfectly for the hometown crowd, and that's what matters. It's really what matters, because then how it translates to when you're watching this on a TV show at home is you see a crowd up on their feet, they're cheering, they're giving atmosphere to what's going on. You're like, this is a hot show. And the finish proves it. The finish proved that emphasis on anything else would have been a mistake, because the energy of that crowd just deflated completely out. Now, is this because AEW has a tendency of sending the crowd home happy with a big win from maybe, there's a bunch of, but it all ties into that nonetheless. It all ties into making the live crowd happy. And it's proof. Too much emphasis on House of Black here would have been a mistake. Because this is what people wanted. Wanted Jericho and Omega doing shit together. And that's what they got. Now, like I said, I think it was a little all over the place. I don't think, this is a match that I'm going to just tuck away and never think about again. I don't think, it was fine, but nothing special. Kind of like this episode of Dynamite. Jake Hager comes in after the match, gets rushed by the House of Black. Then Adam Page and the Blackpool Combat Club end up brawling with the Elite step in to stick up for Page, which causes the Blackpool Combat Club to fuck off. But he doesn't realize, Adam Page, that he's being backed up until he starts turning around, and then we cut to black, and I'm like, motherfucker, this is great. I get another great Nitro conclusion where it's like, oh shit, the thing we wanted to see, we don't get to see it. We're going to have to tune in next week. Of course, there's stuff that's been leaked on Twitter. Kenny Omega left the ring before the Bucks, right? Because the Bucks and Page sort of made some kind of amends a few months ago Kenny Omega wasn't there, right? So he's not in on this. This was great. What a fantastic finish. And you know what? Here's the thing. I challenge anyone. Like, I will not stand for anyone who's sitting around saying the Bloodline is the greatest story ever told, to not appreciate all the story that's been told between Adam Page and the Elite. Because all the elements are there nonetheless. Maybe they're not making faces enough at each other, but this was great. And here's one thing that I want to underscore before we wrap things up. Earlier in the evening, right, I forgot to mention this when Jon Moxley was laying it thick on Stu Grayson. Yeah, the Beaver Boys come out, and you also had Adam Page come in to continue the beef with Mox. And when they started laying into each other, people were back up on their feet. They want more of this. We've already had 4 matches between these guys, and people are like, we still want more of you two motherfuckers killing each other. How is that not a successful angle? How is that not good storytelling? Good in-ring professional wrestling storytelling. People are still, AEW fans are still not fed up of Jon Moxley and Adam Page. They still want more. You know why Tony did that. You know why he sent them in. It was to test the waters, to see the reaction. And he'll probably test it again next week. But that's still something that exists. Look, if you ask me at this point right now, I don't think we're going to necessarily get another one-on-one match between the two. I think we're heading into Anarchy in the Arena 2. This is what I think we're heading towards with the Elite fully reconstituted versus the BCC. Because don't forget, there's Bryan Danielson in this who said, I'm heading home. He's been silent. Now that the BCC are heels, how's Danielson going to react to all of this? How is he throwing himself back into this? Listen, this was like the match, like I said, was what it was. It was fine. But I think the post-match is great. And you can start seeing how we're going to start laying things down here, heading into Double or Nothing very slowly. There's no rush. Double or Nothing's in 2 months. No rush. There's no rush for me to finish this Dynamite review either, but I'm gonna. Because we got to move on. Thank you everyone for listening, for watching right now. Again, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the Mr. Warren Hayes Show channel, or leave some reviews, some ratings on your podcast feed. I should be back on Tuesday for the Mr. Warren Hayes Show proper. Hope to see you there. In the meantime, have a great rest of your week. See you next time.